Johnny Davis was selected with the 10th overall pick in this year's NBA draft by the Washington Wizards. He was seen as a potential star backcourt mate for Bradley Beal and a player with really solid scoring upside as well as being a good defender. Yet 65 games into the Wizards season, Davis has only played 62 total minutes, compared to over 500 minutes in the G League. It was clear from the start of his time with the Wizards that he wasn't an NBA level player at that point. He averaged 8 points per game in the Summer League for the Wizards, shooting an abysmal 29% from the field before being shut down after just 3 games. It would have been fine if Davis couldn't be a starter in year 1, but he not only fell behind Monte Morris for the starting role next to Beal, he fell behind guards like Jordan Goodwin and Delon Wright on the depth chart, neither of whom had a draft status anywhere near Davis. The Wizards have been desperate for guard help all season, but he's been simply unplayable. He's been playing better in the G League as of late, and he could still save his NBA career, but as of right now, Johnny Davis looks like one of the worst lottery selections in NBA history. He wasn't just bad, he hasn't even been worth keeping on the NBA roster for most of the season. So is Davis the worst lottery pick of all time? To answer that, let's look at what got Davis selected 10th, some other infamous busts, and then his potential to turn it around. Before we get into the selection of Johnny Davis, if you enjoy my content and have watched a few videos of mine, think about subscribing. 96% of my viewers are actually not subscribed, so if you watched me before and enjoy the content, drop a sub and comment down below. It really helps the channel. Let's talk about Johnny Davis as a draft prospect before we look at anything else. He was a 3-star recruit out of high school and the 40th ranked player at his position. He committed to Wisconsin, but let me be blunt here, when he signed there, no one expected him to become an NBA draft pick. And in his freshman season, he played to about what you might have expected. He didn't start any games, was a key role player, scoring 7 points a game and about 24 minutes per. He still wasn't on anybody's draft boards. However, he exploded as a sophomore, averaging 20 points and 8 rebounds per game. He was a consensus All-American and one of the top players in all of college basketball. This second season got the attention of NBA draft scouts. He was lauded for his rebounding as a guard and his defensive ability, as well as the impressive scoring from mid-range he showed as a sophomore. However, many likely should have been more concerned about the efficiencies, as he shot only 43% from the field and 31% from 3. He was seen as a consensus top 11 selection by NBC, Sports Illustrated, CBS, and even NBA.com's mock drafts. The Wizards didn't reach on him by other experts' projections, but he just hasn't produced at all. Now to see if he really might be the worst lottery pick we've ever seen, let's look at some other famous busts. NBC has a list of the top 15 biggest NBA draft busts of all time, but let's just look through the top 5. The number 1 ranked player is Darko Milicic, selected number 2 overall by the Detroit Pistons in 2003. Darko never really did anything for the team that drafted him, with his high-end scoring for the Pistons coming at 1.8 points per game in year 2, but that still trumps Davis' 1.2 for the Wizards this season. He was dealt to the Magic after his 2.5 seasons with Detroit, and there we saw some more production. He averaged around 8 points per game with the Magic and around 6 points per game with the Grizzlies after that. He was not even close to what was expected of him, and it was made even worse because he was selected ahead of almost guaranteed Hall of Famers in Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. However, he did play in 468 career games, which is way more than it's looking like we'll see from Davis. The second largest bust on the list is Greg Oden, who was selected first overall by the Trailblazers in 2007, 1 pick before Kevin Durant. However, unlike Darko, Oden's problem wasn't really skill, he just couldn't stay on the floor. He would miss 4 out of his first 6 eligible seasons because of knee injuries, and that's just not really possible to come back from. He averaged 9 points and then 11 points in his 2 seasons on the floor with Portland, but he would only ever play a total of 82 games with the team that selected him first overall. However, talent-wise, it's undeniable he was better than what we've seen from Johnny Davis so far. Oden is one of the greatest what-ifs in NBA history. The third largest bust on their list is Kwame Brown, who was selected first overall by the Wizards in 2001. Brown had small hands, lacked maturity, and was a poor free throw shooter. It's rumored that Michael Jordan made him cry in practice, not exactly the mental makeup required for the hype that faces a number 1 pick. However, he did play 12 NBA seasons, much longer than the majority of NBA players get. He did average 11 points and started 57 games for the Wizards in his 3rd season, but his production would only go down from there over time. He was a career journeyman playing for 7 different teams. Yet for his career, he got 22 minutes per game and averaged 7 points per game, carving out a role for himself as a solid bench player. At this point, this kind of seems like a dream scenario for Davis. The 4th largest bust was Michael Olowokandi, who was selected 1st overall by the Clippers in 1998. Nicknamed the Candyman, his career was anything but sweet. He ground out 10 seasons in the NBA, averaging 8.3 points, 6.8 rebounds, and 1.4 blocks per game. Keep in mind, however, that Candyman was plagued with injuries throughout his career. Misdiagnoses and surgeries turned him into a shell of his former self, an especially depressing fact considering he was picked ahead of Vince Carter, Dirk Nowitzki, and Paul Pierce, also all Hall of Famers. He had slightly better career numbers than Kwame Brown, and similarly, if Davis could carve out this kind of career at this point, it would be a win. Finally, the 5th largest bust in NBA draft history was Sam Bowie, selected 2nd overall in 1984. Sam Bowie carved out a productive 10-year career in the NBA, making the rookie first team and even averaging a double-double in the 89-90 season. He wouldn't be this high on the list if it wasn't for the fact he was selected before Charles Barkley, John Stockton, and some guy named Michael Jordan. Tough break. So there's obviously one thing with these guys that isn't present with Davis. They were top 3 picks in their selective drafts. So let's pivot to a different point. What is the shortest amount of time lottery picks were with their draft teams before being cut? The record holder for that right now is Josh Primo, being waived by the Spurs only 456 days after being selected 12th overall. However, that was primarily due to the off-the-court situation he had. The next shortest is Kendall Marshall, being waived just 487 days after being selected 13th overall by the Washington Wizards. Then we see 2 large jumps. Georgios Papagiannis just 595 days after being selected 13th overall by the Kings. Then Anthony Bennett 818 days after being selected number 1 overall by the Cleveland Cavaliers. Why he wasn't number 1 on the bust list, I don't know. I say all of this to tell you what we're seeing with Davis is unprecedented. He has spent the majority of year 1 in the G League after being a top 10 pick. I assume Davis will be given a chance at a 2nd year with the Wizards, so he probably won't break Primo or Marshall's time periods. But if it doesn't improve, we could see him waived by the Wizards in less time than Bennett, making him the fastest top 10 pick to be cut in NBA history. But is there a way Davis can turn all of this around? I think so. He's been better in the G League as of late, averaging 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal per game in 6 games since the All-Star break. He's also shooting 49% from the field and 45% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. He's still a good rebounder and can be a good defender, so if he can continually hit, catch, and shoot threes at anywhere near the rate he's shooting threes at right now, he could carve out a nice NBA career. Kuzma and Porzingis can leave the Wizards this summer, and that could trigger a Bradley Beal trade, sending the Wizards deep into rebuild mode. If that happens, the team will more than likely give Davis a large chance. They'd have no reason not to. Players like Jalen Williams, Jalen Duren, and Tari Eason were all taken within a few picks of him and look like high upside NBA players, so if he doesn't pan out, that could add to a bust status. However, Davis can save his NBA career, and I'm rooting for him. He's just a kid trying to live his dream. Thanks for watching. I'm Herm. Have a good one.